This is Chief Select Barton. So as a FMF corpsman, when he was talking about um, going from the Master Chief back to the corpsman and back, and having that responsibility of backing up his own shipmates, as as the as the esteem. See, that really hit home. I thought in my own mind, like, if I was in that position, what would I do? And I really don't know. I would like to think that I would be as brave as he would be able to do that, but you just don't know. So it really hit home for me, for sure.
It's definitely puts it in the perspective that now, when you put on those anchors, everyone's looking to you for the answers, and it's easy to think, oh, they're just asking me, like, how do I write an eval, or what do I need to do? But you're in the as a Navy chief, any leader, any situation can happen. I mean, we're watching the news right now, and any country in the past, the present, anything can happen, right? Anywhere, and you might be that senior person in the room, on the ship, in the area, and they'll be looking to you for answers. And you gotta keep that in the back of your mind. You might not have all the answers, but you need to know how to respond and who to look to, what your resources are, basically everything that he put out there. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Attacks can happen. You don't know what kind of attacks, you don't know what kind of situation, but now as a chief, you might be that senior person that everyone's looking to.
I think a lot too how that was just a normal day, a regular day. You wake up, you think you're at normal op tempo, and literally in a split second, your entire day, week, and month changes with that level of impact. So, yeah, it's just a matter of always needing to be ready to step up.
Yeah, something I'd chime in on is, he talked about our adversaries are back, the big powerhouses, China and Russia, right? How many of you or how many of your junior sailors have thought about near peer competition again, right? We're talking, if we get into it with these folks, you're talking about missile barrages hitting ships. I don't think a lot of us are quite mentally prepared for the idea of an entire ship going down, a carrier possibly going down. We haven't had that kind of action since World War II. And I certainly personally don't feel that's at the top of a lot of people's minds, when they're going out to sea right now. And, if you watch the news and you see what's going on in the world, we're not talking about, ground pounding, uncontested skies in Afghanistan. We're talking about, the Chinese can do some damage. The Russians can do some damage. So, that's something that I think everyone needs to be thinking about as, we move into the next decade.
Ray, you also look at how many of the sailors today aren't used to being on a Westpac or the Med or somewhere and having the Russians right on your butt the entire time, not only at sea, but in the air, coming close proximity flybys with Bear Foxtrots or helos or shadowing.
Yeah, it's a different world. It's Back to the Future, right? We're
going back to the
we're full circle back to the Cold War a little bit when it turns that, and I share some of the fondest memories that my dad shared with me. He was a late 60s, 70s sailor in the Med, and he used to share all kinds of cool stories with me about, the Russians didn't really have bases. They'd have anchorage points to do resupply in the Med. And they'd pull up, he was a destroyer sailor. They'd pull up 100 yards off them. And as he used to say, they'd have diplomatic relations from deck to deck. So, we're getting back in that, and there's certainly been, if you watch the news, some brush-ins like that, that we've had with the Russians out in the Westpac area as well. So, definitely something, any sailor today should be thinking about.
Having been one of those sailors doing diplomatic relations as they did a flyby, half the ship giving the international greetings and the other half of the ship mooning them from the flight deck because they're that close you can see their faces. Yeah, we're getting back to that again, unfortunately. But you have to be prepared. Any other selectees have any thoughts on what Master Chief brought up about damage control and how long they fought this alone, on their own? It's tin can sailing, man. That's 200 to 200 and to maybe 300 people on their ship.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of puts in perspective too how much nowadays we really rely on technology, and you really have to have that backup plan to be ready to just take over.
Yeah, in all kinds of aspects. We get too dependent and not being able to easily flex. Just knowing, again, having those options and knowing what alternatives are.
I mean, look at right now with the LSCs, how small the group is on that ship. Think if that was what got hit. You have what? Less than 100 people on the ship. You lose a quarter of them to an explosion. Now what? And remember, it's a cruiser. It was made to take some stuff. Perry-class destroyer and frigates made to take a hit, somewhat, but the LSCs, they weren't. Can you keep it afloat?
I was on a Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigate myself, and oftentimes your shops are only 1 or 2 people deep. You don't have the bodies. So that goes to the chief being that rating expert. You are the expert. You are expected to know everything there is to know about your rate, especially when you're out to sea. So the Navy's shifting away from all this collateral duties and all this other stuff that people are trying to get, and they're focusing more on rating expertise. So I know some of you have gotten those briefs from the Master Chiefs out there. Keep in mind to stay proficient in your rating, especially now that you're going to be wearing that anchor, because they're going to be coming to you for that knowledge, and hopefully never in this type of situation. But we need to be prepared if it arises.
Yeah, Mark, it's just like Master Chief had mentioned, and you and I being corpsmen. Master Chief mentioned that he reverted back to being an IDC. Even though he's a Master Command Master, he reverted back because on a ship of that size, you only have 1 IDC and 1 baby dock. FFGs, 1 IDC, usually your first class or a chief, and a baby dock. Yeah, I was a striker on an FFG. That's how I became a corpsman. I was the extra baby dock, but I was still on deck. When you went up to something bigger, Spruance class, 300 plus people, well, now you got 1 IDC and 2 baby docks. So you're still limited. We have to think
everybody.
About every shop.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
It's almost time for the selects to go to their team times to the team rooms for some team time so they can prepare. Select, so we can keep this conversation going later on, but at this time, go ahead and go to your team room.